Brilliant. Good morning, all. Good to see so many people on the stage, and I'm very honored to share it with the distinguished speakers today. My name is Csinszka Bene. I'm a Hungarian national, and I consider myself a public servant. I've studied a variety of things from international relations to environmental sciences, policy, and economics, which gives me a fair understanding of the energy transition and climate change within it. And nowadays, I'm advising public bodies like the European Commission, as well as member state governments, on various energy and climate change policy interventions. Besides this, I'm also someone who connects people from Eastern and Western Europe and who aims to give young professionals a voice. Now, today I represent young generations here, which are already the people hopefully working on the energy transition today already. And I will attempt to dive into a reality check with you today and skip the small talk, because we need to somehow grasp and intertwine a lot of things, including scientific urgency, generational perspectives in the energy transition, as well as a plea for a much needed shift in humanity's moral compass, in my opinion. So the first point I will make is not very surprising. I hope it's not very surprising to you, is that decarbonization is urgent, strategic, and non-negotiable. Now, this is a very nice figure from an Earth System governance paper from respected scientists. I think it symbolizes very well on where we are and where we need to get, or where we need to stay, rather, in the stabilized Earth scenario. Now, it's not very easy to talk about this, because last weekend, for the first time, the world temporarily reached 2 degrees Celsius global average warming above pre-industrial levels. This was only for a first time, albeit it's very, very scary that we're closing thresholds that we once thought to be distant, and that right now we're basically in the thick of climate targets already. So the math on what we need to do is basically that, according to the UN emissions gap report, which is always released ahead of COP, also this year ahead of COP 28, in order to keep ourselves on a trajectory which is compliant with 2 degrees Celsius, we need to basically double our efforts every year from now on. So we need to reduce 5% each year. But the good news is, and this is very, very important, is that reduction efforts can pursue non-linear trajectories. So this means that even if we don't get to this 5% next year, if we keep scaling our efforts, we can still get there. And yeah, from now on, it's really a balancing act of mitigation and adaptation for both governments and businesses alike, as also the speakers before me mentioned. And we have ample room to ramp up our efforts based on the current solutions that we have, but we really need to collaborate for good. Now, the second point I'm going to make is about generational differences that I think need to be understood, because what climate scientists are describing right now is a global civilizational collapse in the lifetime of some young or even middle-aged people today. And so I do think that the energy sector needs to understand the profound generational disparities in how we perceive this. Today I'm representing a generation that is so very intimately acquainted with the urgency of our action in this sector. We are those people who battle with climate anxiety every single day, because believe it or not, it's extremely depressing to grow up in a world where you're being told that the adults will fix your problems, and then you're an adult, you grow up, and then you are still working at the same problems. So we're very intimately acquainted with this, and we're also the people who in 2030 and 40 and 50 hope that we will not drown, because this is again the time we will be in the thick of the climate targets, and we will face the repercussions of the decisions that we make today. So I want to say it very, very loudly that this sector cannot overlook social justice. It cannot overlook the perspectives of young people, and can also not overlook the perspectives of women, who are very often face a much higher risk and a burden due to their traditional roles due to climate change. So diversity is not a token gesture, it's a catalyst for innovation, and it's also the key to your success and to your company's success in the future. So I want us to stay curious towards each other. I want us to understand that there's no invisible hand that's going to create a low carbon and healthy society. It's us who build those norms and institutions that shape us, and it's also us who will then absorb it in our culture around us. Now, I also want to say that beyond change in individual sectors, in business and policy and in all kinds of governing practices, we need to think in integrated systems, and we need to change how these systems interact with each other. So we need to recognize also the human capacity that is at those intersections and who harmonize those intersections. And very often it's those young people who dedicate their whole career to doing this. So I want you to attract, retain, and reward these young people, because they are the key to your company's success and frankly to the future of humanity. And this, I say this without an exaggeration. Yes, so if you're wondering how to attract this talent, because I'm pretty sure you want to, and there's been a lot of reference made to future generations here, because we are going to take over everything basically. Please listen carefully. We want to live in moral economies where it's easier to do good. And we need to see your commitment to impact every single step of the way. That's how it's done. Now, let's talk about a mindset shift, because we need it like yesterday. Applying a climate change lens to everything we do is not a survival tactic. It's the biggest opportunity also for competitiveness and for gaining competitive edge in this century. And also in the 21st century, we need to acknowledge that regardless of their contributions to society, fossil fuels are the biggest threat to our peace, security, livelihoods, and to our democracies as well. And I want this to sink in. So rewarding polluting activities and adhering to outdated principles of political economies, including our obsession with growth, is not going to lead us anywhere. And we just simply need to find new ways. Now, I acknowledge that the rules that make it easier to decarbonize and make it easier to be good need to be there at the highest levels, right? So in my field, in energy policy, we give advice to decision makers on how to bridge policy and financing gaps, technology and financing gaps, how to scale up technologies, what partnerships to build, how to harmonize regulation, and so on. And so I can confirm that the tools we need are at hand. We got the carrots, we got the sticks, we got regulation, taxation, subsidies. We spent the last decades basically assessing impacts and writing policy. And the energy business and utilities spent the last decade scaling up these low carbon technologies. So at this point, it really should not be rocket science anymore, but we do need to collaborate for good. And we do need to collaborate across generations as well as political cycles, because it's the only way, really, that we can do. It's going to be very costly and difficult, but this is the road we need to walk. So first of all, huge applause to everyone already doing the work, stepping up and pushing for decarbonization. It's getting increasingly hard to do so in nowadays world. We are amidst of polycrisis, multiple wars. The world really seems like a hostile place to any sensitive human being. And this sensitivity, on the other hand, we cannot afford to lose, because it's also our magic wand. I was personally drawn to this career because it felt like the only right thing to do. And now I also invite you to set this as a purpose, to view everything to the lens of climate change and social justice. And I invite you to rise to the occasion and make decisions that future generations will respect you for. Thank you very much.